Hi there, welcome to Inside Sim Racing. Hope you're doing well. Today's video is going to focus on Forza Motorsport 7. This is a review in progress, not a full-blown review, and the reasons for that I will get to in just a moment. But first off, I'd like to take a minute and address, yes, we know this is not a sim, but the franchise does have sim-related elements to it, and I personally have a long history with the Forza Motorsport franchise, starting from Clearback on the original Xbox and the original Forza Motorsport. I've got a lot of love for this franchise, especially 3 and 4, which I thought were the highlight or the pinnacle of the Forza Motorsport series. In these last couple titles, 5 and 6, not so much to my liking, but was hoping they would turn it around for this. We'll see if they do. So like I said, I am looking at this as a little more of a gamer rather than a full-blown hardcore sim racer. I do enjoy video games as a whole, so this kind of gives me a little bit of a unique perspective, which I think a lot of our audience shares. Some just want to know, is it fun to play in general? And that's the way I'm approaching this, not trying to bury it in the sand as to say that it's not a full-blown sim. So we're looking at it as a video game that has sim-like elements to it. I've put about 20 hours into it so far, which puts me 2/3 the way through the main career campaign, which is the Forza Cup. Now, the reason that it's not a full-blown review, again, is because I'm not all the way through the game. Servers are not at full capacity yet. In other words, we're not at launch day to test the multiplayer and see if there's connection issues or anything else that arises. So I don't want to put any false information out there. That's why this does not contain any multiplayer review in it as of right now. And then there are several features that just aren't unlocked yet. You don't have access to auction houses, Forza-thons, and leagues. All of those features are not up yet. So keeping that in mind, let's take a look at Forza Motorsport 7. Now on to some of the pros, and the biggest thing is the new dash camera. Now there is a problem with this in the fact that it is too high. I think the reason they did this is so that the player can see over the hood a little easier and out that front windshield. But if I want to be fully immersed, I'd prefer to sit lower in an actual seating position, not my head into the roof of the car. John and I both had this same take. John's a little more annoyed by it than I am. And the fact that you can't change the FOV is also a bummer. But keeping in mind that this is, again, not a full-blown sim, I do like the inclusion at least of the dash camera. It is a step forward, and at least it makes it enjoyable. It actually lined up with my wheel because the steering wheel is removed on the dash camera. So that is a plus, and I think that is at least a step in the right direction, which I greatly appreciate. The career progress is a nice surprise. We have 6 tiers, and each of those tiers have XP totals to move up to the next tier before you can unlock each of them. So you start at the first one, and then you amass a certain amount of XP in that, and then just keep moving up the ladder. And you do not need to complete all of the races within each tier to progress to the next one. Also within each tier, there is a really nice mix of races available to you. Again, from there, you can buy a car or choose your own car, and I do like that one of the races in there, they include a basically choose your own car to run, and then they'll group cars together. Something that I was initially very excited to see was there wasn't a first race. They didn't try to throw you in this ridiculous race to begin with that doesn't have any context to it, and you can't adjust your controls. You are actually freely allowed to roam right from the beginning and go and adjust things. And as a PC user, this is something that I found was really important to me. The visuals in Forza Motorsport 7 are spectacular. It just looks amazing all the way around. It has an awesome lighting model with day to night transitions. Those are scripted, along with the wet weather changes. But it does look impressive. The fog, it all just comes together in a really nice and beautiful package. Littered throughout that is just small attentions to detail, like the windshield wipers fluttering. At Maple Valley, there's a biplane that goes across the sky. There's helicopters. There's all sorts of these little details that Turn 10 is known for, and they did not disappoint in this one. Something else I greatly appreciate is the ability to turn off the camera motion effects. Thank you so much. That and motion blur are my two biggest pet peeves, and they've managed to get rid of them both, or have the option at least to turn them both off. And that's great, because I do know some people like those because it gives them a greater sense of speed. I typically hate those things on there because, well, it's artificial. Your eyes are pretty amazing, and that doesn't really happen in the real world. So thank you so much for giving us the option, as well as taking off the bloom effect as well. I'm not a big fan of bloom. When I first fired up Forza Motorsport 7, I also noticed that it did start in the 1920 by 1080, and I have a 21 by 9 monitor, and then flipped it to that, and it worked well right out of the box. So again, 21 by 9 is also appreciated on the PC. Then you can look at the staggering amount of cars in Forza Motorsport 7. Well, 700 plus in all, from all over the motorsport genre, and it's really impressive. I'm not quite sure how they pulled all this off, but it is really nice to have a wide variety of cars to pick from, even if some of them are locked and or hidden away, which we'll get into a little later. The track selection is also impressive within Forza Motorsport 7, and giving a callback to something that tugs on my nostalgia strings is they brought back Maple Valley. Thank you so much. That is probably one of my favorite fictional tracks there have ever been. A little bit of a downer is I do question how accurate some of these real-world tracks are. At Indy, seemed like it had a ton of banking on the oval. I am not used to seeing quite that much. It would look like it was Daytona levels. And there's also some other odds and ends that just don't seem quite right, like at Sebring and a couple other places. But for the most part, excellent track selection. They all look great and drive well. And I just want to send out a big thank you to Turn 10 for giving me audio options finally. I can now turn down tire scrub or turn it up. I can also adjust the volume. For me, the biggest thing is opponent engine noises. My ears fatigue very easily because of the real world racing and then playing in bands over the years, and it makes it so much more easy to cope with the audio when I can adjust those levels. So thank you so much. Also, thanks for the force feedback options as well. We can now, the biggest thing for me was that I did not like in Forza 6, the understeer effect was way too much. I thought that was way overdone. You can now tone that down to a reasonable, what I feel is a reasonable level, and also you have center spring adjustment, dampening settings. So there is a few settings. Would I like more? Obviously yes, but it is a step forward, and that is greatly appreciated as well. The damage system remains largely unchanged. There are a few differences, but for the most part, it's the same thing as before. You do get nice physical and mechanical damage with all the cars. It's nice to see the fenders crumple up on older cars and whatnot, fenders blow off, that kind of thing. So, again, that is also something that has not changed, but that's for the better. Along with some other things that haven't changed. And they were things that didn't need changing, like the ability to tune the car to how you like it, the upgrade system, mods, wet weather, the photo, and then the livery editor. All those remain, for the most part, unchanged, which isn't a bad thing. They weren't bad before, so I'm going to list that in the positives as well. One side note is they do have a specialty dealer, and it's kind of a neat thing because every so often they swap out 3 cars, and you have the ability, whether you have that level or not, to purchase a car. Now, cars, I'll get into this a little later, are separated by levels, and your ability to purchase them hinges on what kind of a collector you are. But in this particular moment, as long as you got the credits, you can get some of those cars. And one of the first things I grabbed was the Nismo GT RLM, one of my favorite cars from the Gran Turismo series, and I saw that, and of course nostalgia kicks in and I had to grab it. When you're in a career race, Having now the ability to adjust the length is amazing. For those people that want a longer, more drawn out race and experience, it's actually there for you. There's 3 different options. They do kind of vary. They're not static like 3, 5, and 10 laps. They could be 3 laps, it could be 5 laps, but then there's a significant jump to the next level and then a much longer race at the final tier of that, and that's unlocked for you right away. You just go into your options while you're at the racetrack in career mode and change those up. Very, very nice addition. Much appreciated again. Now the final pro I'm listing is the presentation and UI. And the reason for that is I think the presentation looks rather slick. I do like how everything, it kind of takes a little bit from Forza Horizon series where you're kind of in this hangar, you've got your own garage, and then there's these banners that you can choose from in career mode. Everything's separated onto tiles, which I found to be fairly easy to navigate, and that's probably just because of my familiarity with the Forza series. John, on the other hand, found it a little annoying and confusing, and he wasn't really impressed with how the UI looked or the presentation. For me, I thought it was good. John didn't think it was so great, so you kind of have a little difference in opinion there. Now we move on to the aspects of Forza Motorsport 7 that I thought were kind of a wash. They had a good and a bad point to them, and it kind of puts them in the middle for me, so I kind of feel indifferent about them. So let's get started with that, and driving is probably the biggest part of this. When I first started, I used an M6, and that was the car that I kind of did my testing before I jumped into career mode, and it felt great. It had the right amount of slide, the tire flex. The physics just felt good. And I was actually impressed. I was like, wow, they've really made a nice leap forward. While the car may be a little too stuck, I'm looking at this from what the franchise is, not a pure sim. And in something like this, I would rather have the car stuck to the road too much instead of sliding all over the place and being irritating to control. So, the M6 I tried was really fun to run. And then I started the career mode and started running different cars, and then I went, oh god, nothing's changed at all. It's very bizarre, it's very weird. Some cars feel like they handle excellent and have been improved. Muscle cars, there's some street cars, they have this, it's just more fun to drive. While it may not be super realistic, the cars itself are fun. They just grip the corner well, even though they slide. They do take skill to drive, get your braking points right. It just feels good and makes for a fun overall experience within driving that car. Unfortunately, most of the cars have Forza 6 physics and tire model. It's very bizarre. It's very polar opposite from like the M6 that I drove. The cars are often drift-like. They just, especially like GT and race cars, slide way too easy. You get this lift-off oversteer, or you can flick the steering wheel and just break the back end loose like you're driving a rally car on dirt. Also has a very touchy brake. Push on it too much, you can actually unload the back end enough that the back end starts to slide around. Now, I don't have a problem with the on-throttle oversteer. That's manageable. I did not use traction control at all. But what I did find is I did need ABS on because the brake was just too touchy, and even then, it still gives it that sense that you can stab the brake a little too much and the back end just unhooks and it just snap oversteers, and it's just all kinds of bad. And when driving one of these cars that have this drift-like tendency, racing in the wet weather can be just a chore. It is not fun to drive in the least. And I don't understand this. When you're making a title like Forza, if you're not going to be fully on the sim side, then make the cars have a little more grip. At least make them fun to drive. This was not fun. And then I found something in the 11th hour which changed my opinion somewhat, and that's why it puts it into the neutral category, because I'm sure by now you're going, well, why the hell is this in the neutral category? I never run with stability management on. Never. It is something that I just don't use. I might try it out every once in a while just to see what it does on certain titles, but 99.9% of the time, I do not drive with stability management on. I just gave it a shot because I was testing the gamepad and then thought to myself, well, what if I tried stability management with the wheel? And it instantly changed the car. Even though it looked like the stability management wasn't kicking in. It has a little light down there on the heads-up display. But it felt like the car was more manageable under braking. You all of a sudden got rid of this snap oversteer, on braking kind of goofy thing that it was doing, and at least it drove more like the other cars I was having fun with. So instantly changed my perception of this to having a lot more fun with the cars with stability management on. So if you're having that issue, I would turn stability management on. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about being hardcore. It just makes the majority of the cars more enjoyable to drive. That said, it is weird that I have to turn that on to make a GT car feel like it's somewhat stuck to the track. Those things should be glued to the racetrack, and they're not. What I feel like they've done is developed a drift game and thrown circuit racing in there. And if that's the case, that's cool, but make a drift-only game. And then change your tire model so that it accurately reflects road racing. And it's so bizarre that this does not. I don't think it really knows what it wants to be, and that's why it puts it in the neutral category, because it doesn't drive like it's supposed to, but if you put some assists on, then it drives sort of like it should. Earlier I mentioned the force feedback options, and the force feedback itself is improved, but it still lacks the fidelity of a lot of the other titles. It's just numb on the center. Usually there's just a heaviness to the feel of the wheel. There's not a lot of detail. Every once in a while detail comes through. So buried somewhere in there is the ability to have maybe some decent force feedback. But if force feedback is a real stickler for you, this probably will turn you off, so I wouldn't even bother with this game. If you're kind of like me, where I don't run with heavy amounts of force feedback, I just need it to tell me what the front end's doing, this is okay. Again, there's no detail. It doesn't tell you like the front end skipping across or anything like that, but you do have a center spring adjustment and the dampening. That kind of helps the feeling out of the force feedback. But overall, better but not great. Something new to Forza Motorsport franchise is prize crates. They offer an interesting flip to the mod system. Now, mods are cards that you get. You have 3 slots per race, and each of those mod cars will have, an extra credit boost or extra experience boost, or perhaps if you pass 6 cars clean, you get an extra whatever. This kind of plays into the prize crates. You can get cars, you can get varying degrees of mods. All these driver suits, all these are contained within these in-game purchasable with in-game credits prize crates. So in other words, you're not paying physical money yet for these prize crates. So it's an interesting way to kind of change things up. I'm kind of indifferent on this because on one hand, it's kind of a neat idea. On the other hand, I'd rather just buy the thing that I want and have the ability to do so, but I don't feel like it really inhibits me from doing that as well. The only problem that's going to arise is, yes, these are probably going to be monetized at some point. I've heard rumors about it. I don't know for sure, but this is usually a free-to-play monetizing type scheme, really. I don't particularly care for this in Forza Motorsport 7 for a game that I've already paid $60 for. Well, technically, I didn't pay $60 for, but you guys will pay $60 for, and that's what I'm concerned about. The Forza series has always been about collecting cars and then upgrading and changing the way they look, and that's something that's always appealed to me ever since the Gran Turismo days. It appeals to the gaming side of me. And the way you acquire cars is a little different this time. Basically, there are car collector levels, and each car is worth a certain amount of points. And each level has a level cap to get to in order to open up the next level of car collection. So you have cars in different car collector tiers. That's way too many cars and collectors in one sentence or paragraph. But there are certain cars in tier 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way down, and they are worth a certain amount of points. So once you get enough cars to kind of get rid of that level cap in Car Collector 1, then cars in Car Collector 2 category open up, and now you can purchase those. You cannot purchase them before that. And while this is probably really annoying to most people that want to buy the car right out of the box that they want, and I agree, it is a little annoying, the other part of me kind of feels like it's almost like a license thing, or like a gateway to a reason for you to keep pushing forward and playing the game, which the gamer part of me kind of likes. but I can understand why it would be annoying to people. That's why this is in the neutral. I kind of like it, but I can see where it would be irritating to most people. And then last in the neutral category is going to be the sound effects. Some engines sound awesome, some engines sound hollow and very clinical, and it doesn't seem to pertain to one type of engine versus another. It's kind of all over the map. And then the collision sounds are kind of odd. They're better, but they're either really up in your face or they sound really far away, and very rarely does the actual collision sound line up with the collision that you've had. Hopefully that makes sense. But it's just okay. I really used to be impressed with how Forza sounded, but when you go to something like Race Room and hear the engine and all the effects that thing has going on, it really is kind of just meh. Now on to everybody's favorite part, the cons. People often think I tear games apart, and I really try not to. I really try to be objective about these things, but people think I'm kind of angry when it comes to this stuff. Nonetheless, let's take a look at the worst part of Forza Motorsport 7. That would be the AI. Holy crap, is it terrible. This is some of the worst AI that I have played against, and I can't even remember. Something's happened, so I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a lack of innovation, and then they've changed other things within Forza Motorsport 7 from Forza Motorsport 6 to kind of cause the AI to... I mean, before, they completely lost their crap and ran into you. Now it's just blatant. They have absolutely no awareness. They do odd stopping, which is not unusual, but it seems to be more severe this time around. And they will flat ram you from behind and push you off the road, or they'll just sideswipe you. You'll be driving alongside of them, they'll just start moving over on you, and they will literally push you off into the grass. If you're side by side going into a turn, they will just turn down on you and put you into the infield. They have no awareness whatsoever. It is absolutely awful. The single worst thing about Forza. I can't believe it's actually worse than the prior two games. Please, Turn 10, get rid of the drive-avatars. It's a neat idea. I've stated this before. It is a very neat idea. I like seeing the ability to have my friends, quote-unquote, in the game while I'm running. That's a cool idea. But man, this is terrible. And yes, if you're going to be a person that gets after me saying, it's going to improve, I don't care anymore. I just don't care. It should be good out of the box and then improve and get better. It can't be terrible and then improve to okay. It needs to be great and improve to excellent. This is not an excuse. Get rid of this. You want some good examples of AI? Go hit up Automobilista, Race Room, R-Factor 2. There's several sims out there that have good and tolerable, at least, AI. I mean, Project Cars, for all of its flaws, when it gets it right, the AI drive great. Then the AI drive terrible too. But at least they get it right a decent amount of the time. This gets it right literally none of the time. I would say 5% of the races that I run have a good race with the AI. And this is a problem when at least half of your game is based off of a career progression to unlock cars that uses the AI. This is the third game. Get it sorted out. It's been, what, 5-ish years or so? So, it's so frustrating. This is probably this would make me not want the game, in all seriousness. It's that bad. On top of the poor AI, we have poor optimization. I am well above the recommended spec. I have a GTX 1070 and a 4690K, plenty of memory to go around, and I still get massive stuttering at times. It's not as frequent as it was with Forza Horizon 3, but I still get a ton of stuttering, and I cannot pinpoint whether it's graphic options, whether it's the settings that I have for the actual race. None of it there's no rhyme or reason to it at all. Sometimes it'll stutter, sometimes it won't stutter for a good 2-3 races, and then it'll just be really bad. It stutters during a race, it stutters during cutscenes and loading race menus, and it's just very, very odd. You really got to get this sorted out. Now, I understand that the Xbox One does not have this problem, and that makes a little more sense. It's easier to optimize for one system rather than a bunch of configurations, but still, this is by far the buggiest title I have played in a while, and that's saying something. There's tons of texture loss that don't make any sense, like at Yas Marina, Hockenheim, and Indy. Like the road, the track literally will disappear. Fences will be gone, bleachers will disappear, odd draw distances happen at time, and on top of that, I've had 5 hard crashes in the almost 20 hours that I've played so far. Really needs some updates here, because this is not good whatsoever. Alright, remember how I said earlier that I was really happy that there was no initial race that it just drops you in and you can't get out of before you start playing Forza Motorsport 7? Well, they shifted that to the career, the Forza Cup. And it has 3, count them, not 1, but 3 unskippable races. And the cars that they pick typically drive terrible. You have the Porsche, the Cup, and I think a GTR in there. And it just, oh man. I had gone through the process of setting up how I wanted everything to run, and I ran that M6 and was really happy with how everything was working with, as far as the cars drove. And then I get into those, and it feels like they drive completely different. I mean, it just feels awful. Part of that is because I did not have stability management on, but how am I supposed to know that yet? So what they did was, instead of sitting down and figuring out the cars that are the most fun to drive, they picked the cars that they wanted to showcase, which don't drive good. They do not drive good out of the box with a wheel and pedals. It just is terrible. It's a baffling idea, and plus you're making me run 3 that I can't skip, that I have no option to pick my car from. I don't get it. I mean, I guess, there's brand deals possibly in play that maybe they had to feature it. I don't know, but I believe these were from the demo. I didn't even bother playing the demo because I didn't want it to taint my opinion of what was coming up with Forza Motorsport 7, but holy cow, this is not how you start a career. You don't do this. Don't do it this way, please. This is not good. Earlier I had talked about the options that were available, and there were a lot of options that are included this time that I really appreciate. Something that they're still missing is throttle and brake sensitivity. Now, why do you need throttle and brake sensitivity on pedals? Well, simply because not all pedals are created equally. I've even taken 2 sets of similar pedals, in fact the exact same pedals, just 2 different ones, and seen how they read differently with throttle and brake position. So, really would like the addition of brake and throttle sensitivity adjustment in the options next time, please. A minor annoyance for me, which is still annoying nonetheless, is the camera changes arbitrarily at the start of the race. So you get that little intro, and then it changes me from dash cam to the standard driver position. That's a mile back in the seat. It feels like you're sitting in the back seat. I don't really care for that. I want to be in the dash, and nonetheless, I picked dash to begin with. It should stay with the dash until I tell it not to. So yeah, just every once in a while it changes. Also, if you're using a wheel, the replay system is broken. It goes into a perpetual rewind, so it never starts the replay. It just sits there and does it like the odd whirring noise at the start, and it's irritating. If you have a gamepad available, push a button, plug it in, push a button on the gamepad, then it goes, okay, you want to use the gamepad now, and then the replay works. It's very bizarre, so a bug there to fix as well. On the device end, while you can plug in multiple devices, which is fantastic, H pattern is pretty pointless. A, I can still upshift without even lifting the throttle. B, even when I do shift upright, half the cars don't shift correctly. You can even do the standard long pause where you're like, bum, you're actually shifting a car that has no semblance of a clutch whatsoever, basically. And it still doesn't register right. Downshifts are fine. The upshifts are not good, so that needs to be looked at. And the last thing on the list of cons that I want to cover is the VIP controversy. Now, if you're not familiar with this, the VIP status is something you buy as an extra when you purchase Forza Motorsport 7 and any of the prior Forza Motorsport games. Back quite a ways at least, not to the first one, but later on. And so it's like an extra $20 that you pay. So instead of 60, you pay 80. It's something like that. And you get a credit. In the past, you get a credit boost that does not expire and other perks that go along with the game, cars and all kinds of stuff. Well, now they've decided to change it. What they decided to do was give you 5 mod cars that each had 5 races you could use those cards in for a credit boost. But yet it did not tell you that on the website. So if you were a prior Forza fan and you had used the VIP system, you are thinking that I'm going to get a credit boost throughout the whole entire game. It's going to be easier for me to buy the cars that I want, whatnot. What's weird here is they never mention that. They just say you get a credit boost, forgetting that people that are buying it, a good majority of those people will think that, okay, it's just like before. So then they had to change their wording when people really started raising the stink about it, which they rightfully should have. They did not communicate that it was 5 cards with 5 races each. So a total of 25 races for your credit boost, and that's it. No more. Now you do get other things, and that credit boost is kind of weird because you cannot buy every car that you want at the beginning of the game. Again, you have that car collector unlocking scheme. But the fact of the matter is, they did not tell you that it was expiring within 25 races or 5 cards at 5 uses, and that's it. So kind of a fail on turn 10 of Microsoft's part. And again, it's just weird. Why go through all that? Remember when microtransactions happened in Forza Motorsport 5 and finally they're like, okay, never mind, about 5 months later. So maybe they'll do that with this. Between this and the prize crates, I'm not too excited where this is headed. So in closing, is Forza Motorsport 7 worth a buy as it sits right now? And again, I haven't gone through everything. There's several things I haven't been able to test yet, but what I can tell you is the PC is a major gamble. There are a ton of people, including myself, that are having major problems with the performance of the game on their PC. Now, I have seen some that aren't having any issues at all, but I think this is an incredibly buggy game for, I think, the majority of PC users. So buyers beware. You're taking a big risk with the PC, so I would wait for some major patches and information that it is fixing a lot of those optimization problems that I listed earlier. On the other hand, the Xbox One seems to be okay. It does not have those performance issues. So then it comes down to, well, which consumer are you? If you're an Xbox One consumer, I think it works fine. There are things that I don't like about it as far as how the cars handle. The AI just drives me nuts. And with that, I would tell you, I would wait for a sale or wait for some major improvements to the game as a whole. On the PC side, unless you're feeling lucky, I would seriously consider not purchasing it on the PC. Or maybe try it if you have an Xbox One as well. It's very frustrating to play on the PC with the optimization problems it has, so I would really caution you on buying the PC version. Xbox One, wait for sale or major patches. PC version, I really wouldn't touch until they make some major improvements to it at all, and probably still wait for a sale because of that AI, unless somehow they figure out how to fix that. One note real quick, I told you I'd talk about gamepad for those gamepad users. It works well with the gamepad. I think that's kind of how Forza Motorsport was designed. It just works. It controls decent, still has that lift-off oversteer complaint that I have, but it is not that severe, especially when you turn stability management on, which I would really prefer not to use, but, whatever. Pride gets in the way, and you don't want to use those kind of assists. And you got to remind yourself that this is not a full-blown sim, so you've just got to make it work. So again, I would really wait to purchase Forza Motorsport 7 until they iron out a bunch of stuff, whether you're playing on the Xbox One or the PC. And, hopefully they get it together, because 3 and 4 are some of my favorite games ever on the console. And just not cutting the mustard for me right now. Who says that anymore? And that'll wrap up our review in progress of Forza Motorsport 7. Thank you guys so much for watching. Actually, thanks to John for putting this together for me and doing the editing, because I have a slot car track to build for a customer that I need to finish, so I don't have a lot of time. and John's doing me a favor by putting this together. So thank you to you guys. Thanks to John. For all the latest in sim racing news, you can hit up isrtv.com, and I will catch you guys in the next video.